In Kenya, young techno-savvy entrepreneurs say funding is a major hurdle, and this often results in some ideas not seeing the light of day. But some say launching is possible with the right mix of ingredients.
Enenza, developed in 2013, is a mobile app that's used in classrooms to make teaching easier.
When, for example, you find your question wrong, they direct you and tell you the right answer and tell you more about the question.
The app is the brainchild of a team of young tech entrepreneurs. Christopher Asego, one of Enenza's founders, says publishing an app is not easy, and one needs a watertight business plan.
The general idea of a startup is to make it so that it is self-sustaining. When you're starting a business, you want it to sort of fund itself. So, I mean, the initial funding that we got brought us this far. We have close to 350,000 students on the platform. But in the long term, we don't want to depend on funding.
Despite the challenges, IHAB believes Kenya's future in ICT looks bright.
It's the first time that we are not lagging behind the West in terms of skills and in terms of what we can do. So I'd like to encourage different players to come and invest in tech. Invest your money, invest your mentorship, and I would like to encourage young people to keep innovating.
The center mentors young developers by offering them testing ground for their applications. It is also instrumental in training technologists for Kenya's mega Konza Tech City, an African version of America's Silicon Valley. The project, being set up 70 kilometers outside Nairobi, is earmarked for 2030 and expected to create 20,000 jobs in information technology.
Well, in hard economic times, consumers always fall behind when servicing their debt. And when this happens, creditors have Garnishee orders placed on consumers' salaries. This evening on Moneyline, we take a look at the legalities around Garnishee orders. Our guest on You and Your Money is lawyer Lucas Mieza. Lucas, thanks so much for your time this evening. We've heard it's almost like a swear word in South Africa, but what is a Garnishee order?
Evening to our viewers, Sinki. A Garnishee order, this is a legal process to recover an unpaid debt, where we see a creditor will have to apply for a judgment in a court of law, and once that judgment has been granted, the creditor have to serve the judgment to a debtor. But lately, due to an increase in unsecure and reckless lending, we have seen creditors deviating in using Garnishee orders, using what we call emolument attachment orders. Okay. That is in application similar to the Garnishee orders, but procedurally it does differ, because this one, the repercussions that comes with it is that it gets to be served to the employer, and then the employer is then compelled to attach the salary or the wages of that particular employee.
Okay, so that's the Garnishee is given to the employer?
Yes,
okay.
It gets to be served to the employer, and then the employer will then have to play the part of being a debt collector, if I may put it in that way. Yes.
Okay, so how do you determine whether a Garnishee order that's been placed on you is valid or not? What should have happened?
Firstly, in terms of the legislation, it's very advisable for a debtor who has been served with the Garnishee order to ensure that they ascertain the information of the court where it was granted, who is the creditor, and then with that information, when they even go to seek legal assistance, it will be easy to approach that court, uplift the file, and then with the information that we have ascertained from the document that were issued, then one can check if the jurisdiction issues, how was it served, if it was in accordance with what the legislation provides.
Okay, there were some issues raised around 2012 about Garnishee orders. Some people found themselves paying even after they'd been told that they'd paid the debt or that they had not even been informed. So what are the consumers' rights in this regard?
The consumer's right in this regard, that is why once you have been served with that emolument attachment order or Garnishee order from court, let's check who's the creditor. The consumer have a right to contact the National Credit Regulators Office to check if the creditor did comply with the provisions prior to the granting of that. At the very same time, if the issue of the interest is very important, that they also have to seek legal assistance so that they can, an expert can check for them if the interest that is being charged is in accordance with what the provisions of the law are out there saying.
And what should the employer tell you once they've been served? Do they have to inform you that they've been served this Garnish order and they're going to start withdrawing the money from your salary?
In fact, according to the law, once they've been served, they're supposed to come to call that particular employee. Firstly, before implementing that Garnish order, they have to. It's advisable that they have to do a proper. There must be a proper consultation where the affordability test will have to come into effect, checking the income, the monthly expenditures of that particular employee vis-a-vis the money that will be deducted from his or her salary. So that part is very important that the employer does that part prior to the implementation. But we find a situation where at times that part, because even the HR personnel that are on the payroll officers, you find that at times they are not well trained when it comes to that part as to the proper assessment prior to the implementation of it.
Okay, so there's a lot of education that needs to happen even within organizations and HR departments then.
That is why the organization that I'm with, People's Business Consortium, what we do, we ensure that we provide financial literacy, we provide training for personnel, for HR personnel that deal with payroll issues to ensure that they are able to determine a regular and or irregular Garnish order.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thanks for your time today. That was lawyer Lucas Mieza. Now, South Africans aren't putting away enough money for their retirement years. This has been reiterated by BankServe Africa's latest private pension index. It's found that the average person receiving a private pension has difficulty making ends meet, even more so senior citizens living on a state pension.
The over 60s, the fastest growing population group in the country. That's according to Stats SA. But the reality is most aren't financially prepared when their retirement years hit. Monthly payouts for individuals receiving a private pension on average range from 3,500 Rand to 5,700. And the Social Security Agency says there are close to 3 million South Africans receiving a government pension of about 1,150 Rand. Economist Mike Schussler says the smart option for those who can afford it is to invest in more than one pension product.
We know that in many cases people have saved at different places. For example, we know that some people would have a pension with their firm and a retirement annuity that they save in. Other people we know moved from one firm to another and therefore they ended up with two pension payments over their lifetime. But by the time that they retire, they normally combine that into one to get paid from that because it just makes more financial sense for them.
In most cases, citizens receiving a private pension are not eligible to receive a state pension as well. And Schussler says this is something government should revisit.
More than half of them don't even reach 4,000 Rand a month. So that says to you that a lot of pensioners in these time periods are struggling to make ends meet, and for them to get an extra government grant or an old age grant would really be helpful.
85% of the country's pensioners receive less than 10,000 Rand. This is much less than the 12,500 Rand pocketed by the average South African worker in the formal sector. Many are faced with medical, grocery and utility bills, leaving little room for a peaceful and stress-free retirement. Mutao Khwaripe, Johannesburg.
Our daily question and answer feature, Need to Know, is up next. Stay with us.